G'day, thanks for dropping in. And recently I shot a 21st birthday party at a local bar here in Wellington, and it was a pretty low-light affair. In this video I'm going to cover the equipment I used, the setup, how I got the exposure, my focus mode and focus point settings, and also my flash settings. But first of all, I'm going to show you a wee bit of a clip about how the job actually went and what I actually do when I'm in these jobs and how it might look for you. So watch this and we'll be back with you in just over a minute. Okay, everyone, you're doing great. 1 minute for the photo. Let's all move forward to about here. Everyone move forward to about here. Nice, come on forward to about here. We've only got 40 seconds left, guys. 40 seconds left. We all punch in. Make sure we're in here. Around here. Nice and close on the sides. Move around at the back. Punch it back over here. All right. Okay, guys. Okay, guys, looking this way. 1, 2, 3. And I'll get a couple. Yeah. Okay, everyone raise your glasses if you got one, or your hands. Yeah, nice. Okay, one more. I got it. Good work, guys. Okay, well hopefully that gave you an insight into how these jobs look and how they go for me and how they may well go for you. Just a bit of a look behind the curtain, as it were. Now the first thing I'm going to cover off is the equipment I use. Now for these jobs I use two cameras. The first camera I use is my Canon EOS R with an RF 35mm f1.8 STM lens on it. It's not the fastest or the best lens, but it's actually pretty good. I'm happy with 1.8. If the aperture was any wider, I might struggle, as you might, getting the depth of field and keeping people in the plane of focus. It can be a little bit tricky when people assemble in front of the camera and they're in a bit of a semicircle and people closest to the camera or furthest away are not necessarily as in focus as other people within the depth of field of the aperture of the lens you're using. So any faster than f2 or f1.8, while it might be good to have that extra bit of light, it's not necessary because it actually makes the job more difficult in these sort of event photography situations. The second camera I use is a crop sensor camera. It's a Canon EOS 80D. Now it's not a professional camera, but it does the job. And on that camera I use the Canon EF 85mm f1.8. Once again, it's an older lens, but at that f1.8 it lets in quite a bit of light, and also the 85mm on the crop sensor, it allows you to punch in for those tight portrait shots while being able to stand off from your subject. So having the 35mm on the full frame camera for the wide and the medium shots, and the 85mm on the crop sensor gives me a nice balance of being able to take wide or medium or general shots, and also being able to take tight portrait shots from the same position that I'm standing in. Now I know what you're going to say, neither my cameras nor my lenses are the best that are out there, but it's just not necessary. You can still do the job with whatever gear you've got. Of course, the better the gear you've got, it makes it easier to perhaps get the shots that you can still get on the cheaper or less professional gear, but of course you have to balance that with the price you pay up front for that equipment. I'm more than happy with the equipment I've got. It's not the best, but it does the job. Now another thing is, you might well slap me upside the head for using cameras with only a single card slot, but look, I'm comfortable with it. Why? Because I have to be. I don't have double card slots. If you do, that's great, and if that's a necessity for you, then by all means get a camera with a dual card slot, but it's not essential for me, so I'm comfortable using cameras with single card slots, even for professional jobs. Now if I jump back to the Canon EOS R, for lighting, what I do on that camera is I put a fixed LED panel on it, and that is to light the subjects of the photographs, and I also have a Speedlite on it to light the environment. On the Canon 80D, I just have a Speedlite because the subjects are usually much further away, so I can't light them with an LED panel, but I have a larger, more powerful flash on that camera to enable it to reach out to where the subjects are. I also use a camera harness because it makes it a little bit more comfortable to do the job, and I always know exactly where my cameras are and where they're going to go when I drop them. Okay, now let's move to the setup. In the morning of the jobs, what I do is I get up and I assemble all the batteries and my cards and my cameras and all the gear I'm going to need for the job later that day, and then I start charging all the batteries so I can verify they're all charged before I start the job. I also format the cards just to make sure that I've got all of the space on the card that I'm going to need for the job. It'd probably be a bit tricky to turn up and have half the card full. You just reduce the capacity that you're able to take in one single lot without changing cards. And also, you know in the back of your mind you don't have a clean card to start with. A really important thing to do at this point during the setup is to synchronize the times on your two cameras. It's a real hassle when you load all your images into your PC and you order them by capture time to find that one of your cameras is about 2 or 3 minutes out and your whole photo roll is all out of order. Now, of course, you can update the capture time on the photos, but it's just an extra step in your workflow that you needn't do if only you'd synchronized your times. Okay, now let's talk about the exposure. The first thing I do is I turn up and I have a look at the light in the place, and then this might seem a little bit weird to you, but then I set my exposure based off my maximum ISO. The reason that I set the maximum ISO is that I don't want the ISO to fluctuate above that and ruin a series of shots, and I also know if the lighting is as dark as it is in a venue, it's unlikely to get any brighter, so I'm not going to need to go below that ISO. Once I know what my ISO setting is locked in, and I usually go for around about ISOs 1000 up to about 1600, which may seem low to you, but it actually gives nice clean shots right across the range, even if you're in reasonably well-lit areas and right down to the low-light areas. I then usually run my aperture to the widest possible setting, and then try and get my shutter speed into that range of around about 1/100th of a second to 1/125th of a second, even as slow as 1/60th of a second if you have to, but you generally want it to be a little bit faster than that to try and freeze or at least capture sharply human movement. Now, if that's the first time you've ever heard anyone setting their exposure off their max ISO, then hey, it's just something that works for me. It may not be what a purist or a technical zealot would do, but it works for me because I have done these jobs before where I racked the ISO into quite high levels and then found during editing that they're really difficult to work with on account of the noise. It tends to make them look really soft and really grainy, and it's just not ideal for editing or delivery. One thing I do with my exposure is I do regularly check my shots and check the light meter when I'm taking photos in order to make sure that I'm staying within the range of the exposure I'm looking for. Now, of course, you're shooting raw, so that enables you to be able to recover your exposure if you happen to get it out. So from that point of view, I'm a little bit relaxed about whether or not I'm underexposed or overexposed, although you do want to be in the ballpark so you do have some latitude to work with when it comes time to editing. And then once I've done that, I look at where the exposure is sitting on the light meter, and then I adjust my flash settings for that. My flash is usually always set on TTL, and I usually adjust the flash compensation in around about the range of -1.3 to +1.3, or maybe a little bit higher or lower depending on how the lighting shapes up or if it changes throughout the night, or if I get closer to my subjects and I need to dial that flash back. I sometimes will switch into manual mode on the flash if I find that it's getting too bright or it's too hot, and that way I can really dial it back. Okay, I'm going to talk about the focus modes now. Now, I generally shoot in one shot with single point autofocus set at the center of the frame. Now, of course, you may wish to shoot in servo if there's going to be a lot of movement or you want your focus to continuously adjust, but I generally focus shoot, focus shoot, focus shoot. I don't need to hold the focus and wait for a shot. I generally, when I'm ready, focus shoot. So one shot is pretty good for that. And I also find with one shot, you tend to get slightly sharper photos than you might do on servo, or maybe that's just me and my perception of that. Now, the reason I have the single point autofocus at the center of the frame is because in low light, that's where the most light comes through. The most light is collected in the center of your lens. And generally speaking, the more light you have for your focus point, the easier it is to focus. Now, of course, you may wish to focus somewhere else in the frame, so by all means, move your focus point around, but the other option is to focus recompose. Naturally, if you are focus recomposing, you must be in one shot. If you're in servo mode and you focus and then recompose, your focus is going to pull on to the new object. One shot means that your focus will hold on the half press or on the back button press, and then you're good to go for the shot. And now the other thing when I'm at these jobs is I'm always looking for something to take photos of. The key is to build up a bank of photos that you can go through and potentially deliver to the client. So anything that looks like activity or action or something happening, someone laughing, someone smiling, people cheering, anything like that, grab the shots. I really recommend moving as well, staying mobile. It could look a little bit sterile if you go to deliver a portfolio of photos all taken from the same spot. For me, I like to shoot in one spot and move around and get a different angle, work that scene, try and get the same scene from various angles, and also predict what might be happening. You're listening for noises, you're listening for activity, you're listening for people doing interesting things at the event or the party, and you want to capture them. One thing I will say about event or party photography is to make sure to try and fill the frame with the people who are there. No one wants party photos or event photos with big gaps of no people in them, and particularly the hosts or the birthday boy or the birthday girl or whomever it may be. They don't want to see photos of their party with big gaps with nobody there. For me, I'm always trying to fill the frame with people, or otherwise shoot the subject through people. You can frame the subject using other people who are there at the party, and that shows layers of activity and it shows lots of people there having a great time. Okay, well that was a quick summary and wrap up of how I do these jobs and how I prepare for them, but if you do have any other questions or need any more information, just ask. I answer all the questions on my channel and I'm more than happy to give you all the information. I'm just an ordinary photographer out there just trying to do the best with what I've got, learning new skills every time I do it and sharing them with you. And as for other jobs that I've done that may be of interest to you, you can check them out here. This one here is pretty good, and also I recommend checking out this one also. If you have any questions on those or anything else, please do ask. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching and we'll catch you next time. Bye.